welcome back to another PGA Tour betting preview. This time it is for this week's Memorial Tournament, hosted at Muirfield Village Golf Club, which of course, I'm sure you already know, was the same course that was played last week for the Workday Charity Open. This is actually the first time since 1957 that the PGA Tour is going to have back-to-back events in 2 straight weeks at the exact same course. Now, what does this mean from a bettor's perspective? I am going to get into that in a little bit, but I've got a lot to get through for this tournament, so let's jump right into it right away. Right before I do, though, be sure to subscribe. If you're not already to the Oddshark YouTube channel, go ahead and click subscribe below this video to make sure you don't miss any of these PGA previews or any of the other videos that we put out on an almost daily basis. Okay, let's get into it. Let's take a look at the top 5 odds to win the whole tournament. No surprise, Thomas and Bryson DeChambeau are co-favorites at 10-1. Rory McIlroy and last year's winner Patrick Cantlay coming in right behind them at 12-1. Fifth on the odds list per Bovada is Dustin Johnson at 16-1. Now, obviously, the big news of the week here for the Memorial Tournament is that Tiger Woods is returning to action. This is his first tournament since mid-February. He hasn't played, obviously, since the PGA Tour returned to action since the pandemic. He last played mid-February in the Gensis Open. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you probably saw that yesterday I tweeted, "Do not bet on Tiger Woods." I got a lot of flack for that. I got a couple people angry at me. Let me clarify myself when I'm saying this. Why I'm saying this is because Tiger Woods is clearly the most popular golfer in the world, which means from a bettor's perspective, he's the most publicly backed golfer in the world. Sportsbooks can't put his odds at where they normally probably should be in relation to his skill because he's obviously their biggest liability every single week because people love Tiger, so they love to bet on him. So pre-tournament, I personally never bet on Tiger Woods, and I wouldn't recommend it because his price is always shorter than it probably should be relative to his skill, just because there's just so much public money backing him. Now, in saying that, and actually let's take a look at his odds really quick. At Bovada, he is 20-1, but I have seen some other books offer a little bit of a better price at him or on him. I've seen him 25-1. I've seen him as high as 28-1, which is a little bit better, obviously, than the 20-1 price. But, so let me clarify everything by saying, listen, if you're just a Tiger Woods fan, if you just want to put a couple bucks on him to watch your boy Tiger play this weekend, and if he wins, that's awesome. Hey, go ahead, do that. Don't listen to me. Go ahead, put a couple bucks on Tiger. If you want to bet on a pre-tournament outright winner, though, and if you want to do it to hopefully make some money and get some value out of your bet, Tiger Woods is not the way to go, in my opinion, whatsoever. I will say, though, I said this exact same thing right before last year's Masters. He obviously went on to win the Masters, so what do I know? Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe Tiger Woods goes and wins this event by 5 strokes. Who knows? But I will not be personally betting on Tiger Woods to win the whole thing outright, at least pre-tournament. So there you go. Those are the top 5 odds. There's my little spiel about Tiger. Let's get into my course breakdown. Obviously, I mean, it's the same course that they played at last week, but there are a few changes. The layout will be the same. They're playing the same holes, but the rough will be thicker. The pin placements are going to be a little bit more difficult. The greens will be faster, and some tee boxes will also be changed to make a few holes longer and a little bit more difficult off the tee. The big thing that stuck out to me when watching the Workday Charity Open, and if you guys watched the event, you probably noticed this as well, is the rough. The rough is so thick, it's nasty, it's unpredictable, especially around the greens. I mean, how many flubbed chip shots around the green did we see last week? Way more than we normally would in a normal event. So if the rough's going to be even thicker this weekend, that's going to be interesting to watch. So scrambling obviously going to be very important. But even good scramblers, I mean, that rough is so unpredictable. It's hard to know what the ball is going to do when they hit it coming out of there. So let's look into my 6 key stats. I got 6 this week. I tried to narrow it down to 5, but I couldn't figure out which one I wanted to eliminate. So we're just going to add on an extra one this week. Let's do 6 key stats this week. First one is going to be strokes gained off the tee. This, out of the 6, is the one that I value the least amount. Jack Nicklaus, who is obviously the course designer and the host for the Memorial Tournament, he always describes this course as a second shot course. The tee shot isn't too important, but we at least want to look at strokes gained off the tee because we don't want to bet on a guy who, quite frankly, can't hit an ocean from a boat. So we need at least a guy who's going to be able to drive it decent and not just shank every drive that he hits. Strokes gained off the tee, the first one. Next 2 are kind of paired together, greens in regulation, and then strokes gained approaching the green. So like I just said, this is a second shot golf course. It's all about your approach shot onto the green. Greens in regulation is important just to see guys who can hit the greens, because obviously the rough, as I mentioned, the rough around the greens are going to be tough. We don't want guys to be in that thick, unpredictable rough. So let's just get guys who can get on the greens with their approach shot. And then strokes gained approaching the green, that's going to give us a little bit more of an in-depth look, specifically how close to the hole they're getting their approach shots. Because let's be honest, greens in regulation are all well and good, but if you get 18 greens in regulation, but every single, the first putt that you make on every green is a 30, 40 foot putt, that's not going to help you get birdies. So let's look at strokes gained approaching the green to see exactly how good that approach shot is onto the green, how close they get it to the hole. Then we're looking at par 5 scoring. So this is one stat that really stuck out to me during the Workday Charity Open. The par 5s at Muirfield Village are a lot more difficult than your normal par 5s. They aren't just like near automatic birdies like they are at some courses. So I actually looked at the top 10 golfers who finished in par 5 scoring last week, and then looked at the leaderboard. And 6 of the top 10 golfers in par 5 scoring finished in the top 10 for the whole tournament. 7 of the top 10 in par 5 scoring finished top 20, and then all 10 in par 5 scoring made the cut. So being able to get birdies on these par 5s are very helpful for these golfers, because a lot of golfers aren't going to be able to. It's going to be a lot of pars on these par 5s. So let's look at par 5 scoring. Then scrambling percentage. Obviously, I've already talked about this. The rough around the greens is just treacherous. So we got to at least get some guys who are somewhat competent in scrambling for par if they do miss the green. And then strokes gained putting. Obviously, putting is always important, but I got a little stat here for you golf nerds out there. Stimp meter factor. So if you don't know, stimp meter is a thing that they use to measure how fast the greens roll. Last week they measured it around 11.5 to 12. They expect for this week's event that's going to be up to about 13 or 14. So these greens are going to be quite slippery. So of course we want guys who can putt well. All right, there you go. Those are my 6 key stats, my course breakdown. Let's get into my picks. Before I give you exactly who my picks are, I'm going to let you guys know that I'm only betting on guys who actually just played in the Workday Charity Open. As far as pre-tournament outrights, that's what I'm going to do, because we don't really know what kind of advantage these guys have playing at the same course just last weekend. Are those guys going to have an advantage? I think they will. Why wouldn't they? They know where to hit their shots. They're going to be more familiar with the greens. The greens are obviously going to be a little bit faster, but they're going to know the breaks on certain putts, what way the ball is going to break, and they're just overall going to be more comfortable. It's like as if last tournament was a warm-up tournament, and then everyone who didn't play in last week's tournament is going to be coming in a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit cold. At least that's my evaluation of it. Like I said, we haven't seen this since 1957, so we're all going a little bit blind in the situation, but I'm going to put a lot of value into guys who played last weekend. So in saying that, my first pick might be the most square bet I've ever made in golf. I'm going Collin Morikawa. Why not? Let's go with last week's winner. How could you not? He dominated this course last week. His one quote-unquote bad round was Saturday, and he still shot even par. And his approach shots, which I said are the most important, were unbelievable. His iron play was fantastic. So I was actually surprised to see that he wasn't on the top 5 on the odds list. I probably would have fit him in 5th. Dustin Johnson's 5th on the odds list right now. I probably would have slid Morikawa in there. So I think there's actually some value on his price as well. So let's look at his season-long statistics here. Strokes gained off the tee, 23rd. Greens in regulation, 26th. Strokes gained approaching the green, 1st. Obviously, 1st on tour. He's amazing at approaching the green, and he put that on full display last weekend. So why can't he do that again this weekend? Par 5 scoring 4th, scrambling tied for 87th, putting 150th. So this is the one weakness Collin Morikawa obviously has. Out of everything that he has, his putting would be his one weakness. But last week, he putted very well. He was 16th in strokes gained putting in last week's event, gaining 1.18 strokes gained on the field in putting. So if he was strong with his flat stick last week, I know the greens are going to be a little bit faster, so they may give him a little bit more trouble. But putting is kind of that feel, kind of that comfort thing. When guys get hot with their putter, that usually lasts a few weeks. So I'm hoping that carries into this week as well. Let's look at his odds here. To win, he is 20-1, top 5 plus 400, top 10 plus 200, top 20, he is minus 110. I'm going to take him top 5, and I'm going to take him top 10 at plus 400 and plus 200, respectively. There's my first pick, Collin Morikawa. My second pick, I'm going to be going was a guy who might surprise some of you people watching this video. I'm going with Jason Day. He actually quietly had a pretty great tournament last weekend. He finished tied for 7th. The biggest reason why I like him, though, don't forget, he's actually a member at Muirfield Village Golf Club. It's his home course. He plays it all the time. He lives just down the road. I actually think he's just living in an RV in his driveway throughout the tournaments here. His biggest weakness, which is obviously my cause for concern this week, is his iron play. That's the one biggest weakness in his game. He only gained 0.14 strokes on the field in approach play last week. But in saying that, with that poor iron play, he still finished tied for 7th. So all he needs to do is dial those irons in a little bit more, and he can really tear this course up, I think. And I think there's some great value given his current price. I'm sweating here. It's hot. It's hot today. Okay, let's look at his stats here. Strokes gained off the tee, he is 53rd. Greens in regulation, he's 118th. Strokes gained approaching the green, he's 166th. So like I said, there's the two numbers right there. He's not great with approaching. I hope he can dial that in a little bit better this week. Par 5 scoring, pretty good, tied for 17th. Scrambling, 46th, which is good and of course important at this track. Strokes gained putting, not great, tied for 111th, but he did pretty well with his putting last week, so hopefully that'll carry over into this week as well. So here we go. His odds now, like I said, I think there is some value here. For him to win the whole thing, 66 to 1. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be a little bit conservative here, but top 5, 10 to 1, top 10 plus 500, top 20 plus 250. I'm just going to take him top 20 plus 250 just because his iron play gives me a little bit of worry, but I mean, he finished tied for 8th last week, so top 20 I think is well within striking range for him for a guy who's very comfortable with Muirfield Village. So I'm going to take him top 20 at plus 250. Now for my final pick, obviously I always like to give you guys a long shot, a dark horse, a guy nobody else is betting on who I think has some value. And this week, that guy for me is going to be Troy Merritt. He finished tied for 22nd last week, but the thing that stuck out to me about Troy Merritt was his iron and wedge play. He was 5th in the entire field in strokes gained approaching the green last week, which I've talked about in this video is the #1 most important thing at Muirfield Village is approaching the green. And he was 5th in the whole field in this category last week. His downfall this past week, actually, ironically enough, was his putting. But the funny thing is about that is that's usually his strength. Putting is usually the one thing he's actually really good at. And let's look at his numbers. They're going to show exactly that. Keep in mind, these are his season-long numbers. So strokes gained off the tee, 136, 117th, and 172nd in the 2 approach categories. So those are bad, quite frankly bad. But last week, 5th. So maybe he's turned a corner in these categories. I really hope that's the case. Par 5 scoring, tied for 163rd, scrambling 97th, putting 25th. So there you go. I mean, he's a very good putter, but that's what let him down last week. So I'm hoping that if he can keep his iron play up and same course just a few days later, I don't see why he can't keep that iron play up, and then he gets his putting to the level where it normally is on a week-to-week basis. I think Troy Merritt has a very good chance of playing well this week and finishing top 10 or top 20. Speaking of his odds, let's take a look to win the whole damn thing. He's 200 to 1. I'm obviously not going to do that. Top 5, he's 33 to 1. Top 10, he's 14 to 1. Top 20, he's plus 600. I'm just going to be conservative with him, obviously, because, I mean, look at his numbers, season-long numbers, they aren't good. But top 20 plus 600, that's going to be my bet. He just finished tied for 22nd, so he's like 1 stroke out of hitting top 20 last week. So I think if he can dial in the putter a little bit more, that top 20 is well within reach. I love that price at plus 600. So there you guys go. I'm a sweaty mess. It is extremely hot here in my apartment today. Whew! But that is my course breakdown, my 6 key stats for the Memorial Tournament, and then my 3 golfers that I'll be backing this week. Best of luck. Once again, subscribe to our channel. Go ahead and click the Oddshark logo to subscribe. I believe it is on that side of me. So go ahead and click that. Best of luck this weekend and enjoy the Memorial Tournament.